Hey, I'm George Ruggiero.
And I'm John Finnegan.
And this is the G and Finn Show, giving you up-to-date info on Ole Miss sports and more from around the country.
Catch us Mondays at noon and Fridays at 6 on 92.1 FM, Rebel Radio.
Good evening, everyone. It is a brisk Friday evening here in Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss currently taking on their first regular season basketball game of the season over at the Pavilion, just a few blocks over from Bishop Hall. I'm John Finnegan, joined today by Memphis native, massive Ole Miss fan, one of the biggest I know, and friend of mine, Mr. Payton Stanford. Payton, how you doing today?
I'm good.
So we're going to get right into it. Ole Miss with, not the most exhilarating matchup of the season, taking on the 0-8 New Mexico State Aggies at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Payton, you see any reason for people to go to or watch this game? Because for me, I'm not seeing anything right off the bat.
I feel if you just want to go watch Ole Miss probably beat up on a lower competition team, this is probably the matchup for you to see it.
Yeah, and Ole Miss favored by 28. That's 4 touchdowns. That's a big spread, but this is an 0-8 team. If you don't know much about New Mexico State, I know I don't, but they're in the Western Athletic Conference in the WAC for other sports. We're in the Sun Belt once Western stopped doing football. So Sun Belt 2013-17, now an FBS independent along with UMass and Notre Dame. They're 0-8. They played Washington State. They were ranked. They played Bama. They were number 1 in the country when they played. But some of their other losses, Liberty, Central Michigan Chippewas, University of New Mexico, of which they're one of just 2 wins. Composite ranked 126 in the country. We're paying them $1 million. We're paying them $1.5 million to come and play in Oxford. But I'd love to get into a little bit of why this team's been struggling so much. Not too much development, at least since Monday. We talked about the Auburn game already. But what do you kind of see as the reasons New Mexico State's 0-8 this year? What should we keep an eye out, things Ole Miss can take advantage of?
Well, one of the biggest things is that their quarterback's thrown 9 touchdowns, he's thrown 14 picks this year.
Yeah.
When you're giving the ball away that much, it's a recipe for 0-8.
And when I was looking at John Adkins, just checking out his stat line, 62% completion rate, one of the first things I saw, 4 touchdowns on the ground, and I was like, okay, maybe this kid's got something going on, maybe he's doing something, but then you look, 9 to 14, he's thrown just over a touchdown a game and almost 2 picks every game. He's only got 1 this season, over 300 yards, and that was in a loss to University of New Mexico, an exceptionally weak team. And he gets sacked 3 times per game on average. He's taken 24 sacks this season. So I'm not feeling too great if I'm him, going against a much improved Ole Miss defensive front. But beyond that, their offense has of course been struggling. They're scoring 18 points per game. That's nothing, especially with the caliber of teams they've been playing. Even Alabama, they scored 10 points. Washington State, they scored 16. But against lesser opposition, they're not putting up much. As far as their offense goes, they got a couple guys on the ground, Jason Huntley and Christian Gibson. They got 800 yards, 150 carries between the two. All 5 touchdowns on the ground, ignoring a couple short 2 draws and 2 QB sneaks for John Adkins. All 5 touchdowns on the ground came through Huntley. He's a pass-catching back as well. He's got 29 receptions for over 150 yards and a couple touchdowns through the air this season. I think he's the only threat I really see Ole Miss having to worry about. Is there anyone you get concerned about seeing in their backfield or out wide?
Not at all. Huntley is evidently he's their number 1. If you can contain him, you're pretty much containing most of their offense, because I don't see anyone else in the running game that's even a minor threat to Ole Miss. So.
And he runs a lot of plays like ones they set up for McCaffrey. I'm not saying the kid's the next McCaffrey, but he can do a lot on the field. He has broken a few long touchdowns this year. I'm sure he'll get something in the fourth quarter that ruins the spread for somebody. But beyond that, he's really all I see. Out wide, with the quarterback that's struggling, of course you're going to struggle at the receiver position. They got 2 main threats, Tony Nicholson and O.J. Clark. Nicholson, the number 1. 43 receptions to O.J. Clark's 38. Nicholson with about 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Clark with about 300 and just 1 touchdown through the air. I'm not seeing really anything this Ole Miss defense should need to worry about. I think you contain Huntley. You try and get them to beat you over the top, they're going to immensely struggle to do that against an Ole Miss defense that's scheming miles and miles better than they were last year. But I know you mentioned earlier someone on defense that you think Ole Miss should keep an eye out on.
The big one is Javon Ferguson. It's evidently he's their best defensive player in any capacity. He's got 89 total tackles, 36 solo, 53 assisted, 5 pass deflections. It's very evident that he's probably their strong middle linebacker who kind of controls that defense, because outside of him, there's next to nothing production-wise. He's pretty much, I'd say he's pretty much their Momo, their Lakia, their kind of big tackler, big everything.
He's their playmaker in the backfield, sort of that captain of the defense role that you look for in a linebacker. But at the end of the day, even with a linebacker that stood out, he's not standing out. He's standing out because of his company. And I don't mean any disrespect to their defense, but 129th out of 130 teams in rush defense. Ole Miss rushing on offense, ranked 17th in the country. We're going to eat them up. Through the middle, out wide. I mean, we got to get guys like Elijah Moore involved. This would be a good time to check out any scheme fixes you want to make. We're going up against an incredibly strong LSU team very soon, and then an Egg Bowl that we really ought to win. But right now, we're staring 4-8 in the throat, and I think it's going to be a lot tougher for Ole Miss if they can't figure out what they're doing on offense with a game like this. But, I mean, I don't think there's too much more we can say about this matchup. Ole Miss should win it handily. 28-point spread. You got a score prediction?
I feel probably 45-10. Ole Miss getting a couple defensive scores in that mix. So offense fix a little bit for these next two big SEC games, and defense continue doing what the defense has done all year. Yeah,
I think you bring up a really excellent point about defensive scoring. This is something that Ole Miss is. I mean, special teams, ignoring kicking, but punt return units, punt blocking, and coverage, that's all been excellent for Ole Miss. I wouldn't be surprised to see us get something weird here or there. If we're outclassing them just as athletes, higher star recruits, much bigger school, much bigger program, you can expect stuff to get a little odd in matchups that get so one-sided. I wouldn't be too surprised to see the offense start coming out a little slower in the third and fourth quarter. I wouldn't be too surprised to see New Mexico State cover. I mean, even 34-10, 31-7, even that's covering a 28-point spread. So I think, it's not going to be too great to watch. It's an excuse to get in the Vaught. It's going to be a little chilly. They sell beer now. You'll be all right. But at the same time, kicking off game of the century, depending what poll you're looking at. Undefeated LSU traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on undefeated Alabama. And, I mean, this is a game we've hyped up for a couple weeks. So how are you feeling about this matchup?
I feel it's definitely going to be very interesting. I feel that the team that wins this has probably got the best chance to win the national championship this year. If it's Alabama, they have proven the doubters wrong, that they're young and everything. If it's LSU, they just continue to have this terror of a season that they're having. So it's definitely a matchup that's going to probably set the stage for the rest of the top four to say, hey, we got to play like that to beat anybody from the SEC.
And this is a game that's going to be talked about all the way up to the playoff and the national championship game. One of these teams is absolutely going. Both of them very well may go. I don't expect either of them to lose another conference matchup, so the winner of this one is going to go take on the SEC East champion. And, that's going to be a heck of a resume builder with a strong top of the SEC East this year. So Alabama's favored by 6 in Tuscaloosa. And I feel like one thing we've seen a lot of, at least the years we've been in school, because I know I became a much bigger SEC fan once I got into school, but I feel like we get hyped up, this is LSU's year. They're going to steal one from Alabama this year. And then Alabama shuts them down and steamrolls them. I mean, it happened a couple years ago. It happened our freshman year. What do you see in this LSU team that makes you feel a little bit differently? Because I'm with you.
I feel that it's a very veteran defense that, yes, lost a couple pieces last year to the draft, but
and exceptional pieces, but they
replaced them. And then offensively, you have a quarterback, which at least the first time that I've been in school, and it's been the first time in a few years that LSU's actually had a steady, solid quarterback who can throw the ball around, even to receivers that aren't, might I say, the greatest receivers. They're at least they're weapons. And with Burrow's ability to run and with a relatively fine running back, they've got a good enough team to beat Alabama, because Alabama's got a very young defense this year outside of the front seven.
Yeah, and I think the tale of this game is going to be LSU's offense versus Alabama's defense. And the reason for that, LSU and Alabama, both historically programs that rely on a stout defense and a strong run game. That's the kind of, they're a ground and pound team, control the ball, don't let you get anywhere near their end zone, control the clock, wear out their defense, and just run it up the gut. LSU was that Alabama was probably that team, I'd say, until they got Jalen Hurts. It was national championship caliber, that kind of team, but now that they've had passers who can really open up the field and running guys like Jalen and Tua, that's going to be the difference maker. Tua Tagovailoa, by the way, a game-time decision for this weekend.
That's definitely going to be very interesting because if Tua isn't playing for Alabama, that definitely could swing. I won't say tip the scales in LSU's favor, but definitely swing it more towards them.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, Tua, he's going to be in the running for the Heisman. Hasn't been as lights out as he was last year, but still playing at a fantastic level against a strong SEC West. But for me, it's going to be LSU's offense, Alabama's defense. LSU's offense hasn't been they haven't had weapons through the air until this year, with Joe Burrow really emerging. He played last year, but he was not the Joe Burrow that's getting everybody so excited and getting NFL teams and Heisman voters excited. Let's just take a look at LSU's success rates as far as their offense goes. Overall, number 2 in the country. On the ground, number 13. Through the air, passing down success rate, 60%, good for number 1 in the country. LSU throwing the ball. And Alabama, all of a sudden, an offensive team. With their defense, not a single ranking in the top 15, all top 40, but their success rate against teams throwing it, number 16. On the ground, 37. I think it's going to be coming down to, can Joe Burrow beat Alabama's defensive backs through the air?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be Burrow's. I mean, Burrow hasn't thrown that many picks this year. He's only thrown 4, but again, big game in Tuscaloosa. He's just got to be very careful. 1 or 2 bad throws or a tip ball somewhere, and Alabama defense you start feasting, which
that's not something you want to let happen.
Yeah.
And the one thing that, it's weird to see a matchup between these two teams that comes down to the offense so heavily. When you look at Alabama's offense, another it's scooting LSU out of the way. Number 4 overall, number 2 running the football, number 4 through the air. And LSU's defense, exceptional against the run, number 3 in the country, 11 overall, 30 through the air. I think whichever quarterback can take better advantage of finding that space and breaking off those explosive plays, I think that's what they're going to need to do. If LSU can break off a couple long runs on the ground, that's going to be how they get it done. And I think this is an Alabama team we don't know too much about, just because they haven't had that real litmus test yet. Even their conference schedule's been a little bit weak. Playing A&M, are they even still ranked?
I don't believe so. Do not believe A&M's 20. Nope, they are not ranked right now. I do not believe.
Yeah, so A&M not ranked in the initial playoff poll, it looks like. Yeah. And Alabama, they weren't number 1 coming into the season for the first time that I can remember. And, that's because they were unseated by Clemson in the national championship handedly. But when we look at the top teams, LSU is ranked ahead of Alabama. Right now, the field for the playoff is Ohio State taking on Penn State and LSU taking on Alabama. LSU's ranked higher, and I think for good reason. Came into the season a lot lower. Bama's only dropped behind LSU. But when you look at the schedule they've played, LSU has had some incredible wins this season. Over number 11 Texas in Texas. Took down Florida in the Swamp. And a good Auburn team. LSU is...
No, they beat Florida in Death Valley.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Florida and Auburn
was
in
in
Death Valley. But
the real Death Valley, which is in Baton Rouge. But they've got some great wins this season. Alabama hasn't shown us anything yet. They're going to show us this weekend one way or another. So spread is Alabama favored by 6, over under 54.5. I feel good about LSU this year. How about you?
I feel like LSU's got it. It's going to be protect that ball. Don't give a young defense any kind of anything, and you can be able to beat them. So far for Alabama, we're the team that scored the most on them, 31. I think that ends this week. I think that this Alabama LSU game is probably going to be a shootout.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a sentence I don't think anyone around here has heard in a long time. It's going to be a good one. Game of the century, depending what poll you're looking at. I've got LSU. I just feel really good. I don't think Alabama's shown us that they're the completely dominant force they have been in recent years. And LSU's got as good a resume as I think the playoff committee's seen in their opening week since its inception. Beyond that game, What else are you watching this weekend? Anything else you're keeping your eye out on?
The one game that I feel that because of this Alabama LSU game is going under the radar is Penn State Minnesota. Battle of unbeatens in the Big Ten. If Penn State can win this game, they kind of prove it's like they really haven't played. Penn State hasn't played anyone this year really. I mean they've played a Big Ten, but their I think best friend right now I believe is Michigan.
Yeah, and Michigan, a good team, dropped in the rankings after their loss to the Nittany Lions, in-state college, whiteout game. Those are always fun in Pennsylvania. But I think Penn State, a lot of poll inertia. Minnesota, they're not trying to... Minnesota's ranked 17th in the country. Penn State, currently number 4, so favored to go to the playoff. If they win out, they certainly will. Minnesota's best win, Illinois. Big Ten, top-heavy, some fantastic teams in the Big Ten. Minnesota's going to prove whether or not they're one with them.
This is definitely the beginning because Minnesota's remaining schedule, they've got, of course, Penn State this week and then Iowa and Wisconsin still left. So, I mean, they've got, if they can win tomorrow against Penn State, they definitely can get a chance, especially these other two, as long as Iowa and Wisconsin hold steady in the polls. They can make themselves as like, hey, we're in the Big Ten championship game, we're playing Ohio State more than likely. Let's see what we can do.
And you know what? Definitely a good team. We're going to see if they're a great team. I think they may even rise in the rankings with a close loss to the number 4 team in the country. But as it stands right now, they're a contender for the Big Ten. They're undefeated. So is Penn State.
Yeah,
we'll see if the hype's deserved.
Yeah, right now Minnesota is 8-0. They're 5-0 in conference. They're 2 games ahead of Iowa, which is the next closest team in that Big Ten West.
And Iowa ranked just one spot behind them.
Yeah.
I was going to travel to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. I don't watch a ton of Big Ten football, especially not Iowa or Wisconsin. So I'm not sure what to expect from this.
What I know with Wisconsin, if they can get Jonathan Taylor, of course, involved and get him going, they probably have a good chance to win. I mean, I know Iowa did play Penn State tough. I mean, Penn State did win 17-12, but it was a tough game in Iowa for Penn State. So, I mean, Iowa's going to play tough regardless. So that's definitely one to watch because the winner of that Iowa-Wisconsin game is definitely going to be the next contender for Minnesota in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, that's who I'd be watching out for if I were them. And a little more news outside of the Big Ten. Chase Young, defensive end at Ohio State, suspended for 1 game by Ohio State. The NCAA is coming down on a few different people this weekend. We'll get into a little more basketball news later. But as it stands now, what it looks like happened the summer before his freshman year at Ohio State, Chase Young took a loan, a few $1,000s from a family friend, and right now the details are a little bit fuzzy. Was he a booster? Was the loan paid off in full and promptly? Was it paid off before he committed to the school? Was it paid off before he enrolled or began classes? So right now, a lot up in the air as far as this goes. They're expecting a 1 to 2 game suspension based on some precedent set at Kansas, but whether it was from his agent, from a booster, we're going to see how that story develops. I'm sure we'll have some more news for you on Monday. Right now, as it stands, he'll be sitting out the game against Maryland. I don't know what they're going to win by 40 instead of 50, missing him this weekend. I'm not too worried about this weekend if I'm Ohio State.
Yep.
I don't expect him to go down anybody's draft boards either. So, you got any other games in college football you're watching this weekend?
Not really. I mean, Kansas State, Texas is probably one just to look at. Texas not ranked right now. Kansas State is ranked at 16. Texas is probably mad they're not ranked, but undoubtedly so. They deserve to not be.
I think they prove pretty easily that they shouldn't be every year.
If they can win this week, they can probably get themselves back in the top 25. But again, that's outside of that game. It's slim pickings, so to speak. A lot of either high-ranked teams playing unranked and then unranked versus unranked. So
we'll see as it goes. There should be at least one great game on. I think that Big Ten matchup is going to be a lot of fun. And, hey, Ole Miss will probably get our last win of the season. If you're a senior like me, it might be the last win you ever see as a student. So cherish it if you can. We're going to take a quick break for commercials. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back to the G and Finn Show. I think we're going to get right into it with a little bit of NFL. What games you seen this weekend?
I mean, definitely probably the Sunday night, Monday night game. I mean, Sunday night with Minnesota-Dallas, definitely going to be entertaining. And then the big one of the week, that definitely Seattle and San Francisco.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing too. I don't see too much exciting on the Sunday slate. Thursday night football, though, did you catch that game last night?
I caught bits and pieces of it. It was definitely interesting to see. I mean, it keeps Oakland alive in the playoff hunt, and I won't say it ends Los Angeles' chances for the playoff, but it definitely dampens them.
Yeah, and you know what? A pretty good game. A lot of back and forth. Came down to the end, but a surprisingly weak Thursday night football slate for this year. I felt like it was one of the better games out of only a few I even bothered watching. But a lot of back and forth. Phil Rivers had one of. Did he catch a 2-minute drill at the end, if you could call it that?
I caught bits and pieces of it. I didn't catch the full game, but I mean, I heard about it. Yeah.
And you know what? Rivers came up with probably one of the least clutch performances I've ever seen. You know what? Down 4, got the ball with a minute and a half left. He threw 8 incomplete passes. Didn't hand it off once. Went to 4 downs, got a penalty, threw 4 more incompletes, and lost the game. Has Rivers fallen off?
It definitely is. It's very evident. He probably. I don't say he has, but he's definitely age is catching up to him. I mean, Eli, of course, has already been benched this year from that draft class, and Rivers has about been Mr. Reliable so far. But I mean, a bad game yesterday: 17 for 31, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So.
Yeah, so nothing exceptional. And then, you know, veteran guy, you expect to be someone who can bring you down the field, know which options you're going to have, at least in a 2-minute drill. That's something your team has scripted. Minute and a half left on the 40. Should be able to make something happen, at least get a couple first downs, at least get a couple checkdowns. You know what, Phil? At least complete a pass. So none of the Sunday games popping out at me, but Vikings at Cowboys, I think we'll see which team's a real contender in the NFC.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. If the Cowboys end up losing this game, it definitely keeps the Eagles' chances of winning the division alive. If the Cowboys win, it probably, I won't say eliminates the Eagles from getting the division, but it definitely makes the path a lot harder.
Absolutely. And every team in that division is still in control of their own destiny. Cowboys with a confounding record, honestly. Some games they won, they came out swinging, especially beginning of the year, starting off 3-0, I believe. But inexplicable loss to the Jets. Yeah, it was at MetLife, but it's a Jets team that just lost to the Miami Dolphins. So we'll see which team's the real deal this year.
Yeah, when the Cowboys are playing well, they're beating teams really well. I mean, they've beaten the Giants 35-17, 37-18, beat the Eagles, of course, 37-10. In their losses, they've played bad. I mean, the Saints lost and the Packers lost. They turned the ball over. They looked bad. And the biggest thing is if the Vikings can force the Cowboys to make mistakes and turnovers, the Vikings got a chance to win.
Yeah, and just like you always do when you have to play the Cowboys, have to contain Ezekiel Elliott, force Dak to beat you. He's got weapons. He's a good quarterback. We're going to see if he earns the paycheck he might be staring down at the end of the season.
Yeah, I did notice this, that Amari Cooper is listed as questionable right now. That's something to keep an eye on. I don't think anything of it, but definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, so something to watch out for. I think that's going to be a solid game. One other game I'm really excited for, Monday Night Football. 49ers, the only undefeated team left. But I'm psyched to see it. They're having the Seahawks travel to San Francisco to take them on. Seahawks have been great. Loved watching our guy DK play. How are you feeling about that matchup?
I feel it's definitely, I mean, if San Francisco wins this game, they pretty much control their destiny in the division. Since they are 8-0 and they are a couple games up on Seattle, who's 7-2. If San Francisco, this is when San Francisco can prove that they are a contender.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm seeing. Because week schedule so far, the team that's played them the closest, Arizona. Arizona has had a quiet and good start to the season. I wouldn't put them in contender range, but immense improvement from last year, just like the 49ers. Yeah, I think Seahawks-Niners could be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. DK had a great weekend last weekend. We'll see if he can keep that up. That chemistry between Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, absolutely insane. I don't know how they manage. They're telepathic. There's no other explanation for it. But that's kind of all I'm seeing. One kind of interesting game, Giants take on the Jets. Only happens once every 4 years. Showdown at the Meadowlands, same stadium. Technically a Jets home game, which is kind of interesting. So if you're a Giants season ticket holder, you won't be attending that one. But that's kind of all I'm seeing in the NFL. Ole Miss basketball playing right now up on Arkansas State. We're going to take our last quick break of the evening, but we'll be right back with everything else that's going on in sports right now. And we're back on the G and Finn Show. We've got just a little bit of college basketball before we're done for today here. Ole Miss right now taking on Arkansas State. What are you seeing from this game?
Ole Miss is up 33-15 right now. We just went into a timeout with 3 minutes and 33 seconds left in the half. Devontae Shuler and KJ Buffin definitely leading the scorers for Ole Miss. They both have 11. Buffin's got 3 rebounds and assists. Schuler's got 2 assists, 1 assist and 2 steals. Outside of that, scoring's kind of limited. Rodriguez and Tyree both have 3. Crowley off the bench has got 3, and Williams has got 2 off the bench.
I'm liking what I see so far. Looks like the new guys are adapting really well to the 1-3-1 system that Kermit Davis is kind of known for. One thing that really brought Ole Miss to where it was last year. Now, coming off 8th seed in the NCAA tournament after not making it the first couple of years we were in school, what do you see for this team? What's your prediction? Do you expect regression? What do you see?
I feel this team, at minimum, can either sit where the expectations are, like right around 6-5 in the SEC that preseason's put us at. I do see that this team, with a very, very talented Schuler and Tyree leading us, can possibly make a run for the SEC championship game. They're definitely a good team, especially if these young guys down low, or if guys like Buffin continue to produce as he's done so far tonight. We can definitely be a dark horse candidate in the SEC that, of course, you have LSU, you have Auburn, you have Kentucky, you have Florida that are kind of the big names everyone knows, but you leave Ole Miss down and you kind of just throw them away as they're going to make it but be a 10 seed, they'll surprise you, because we surprised almost everybody last year. And
not expected to make the tournament last year, and for good reason. I don't think that the old squad had really Andy Kennedy's squad hadn't given any reason to believe in the program. But Kermit Davis absolutely revitalized the program. It's been a lot of fun being a part of Club Red. They showed up tonight. I'm upset I couldn't be there. But, I kind of set the floor at 10 seed, maybe.
Yeah.
Lost a couple guys to graduation, NBA, transfer. But Kermit's getting his guys in. Another year in a very different system from Kennedy's. Another year under a great head coach. I wouldn't be surprised to see this team give us a reason to kind of believe in Ole Miss sports once again.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. One definite thing that if any Ole Miss fan watched any bit of last year's the rebounding, they already have 7 offensive rebounds tonight.
Not even at the end of the half.
I know we totaled 7 rebounds in games before. I just don't have a recollection of me being at one when they had 7 offensive rebounds.
And I think that's what the season's going to come down to. It's going to come down to the bigs and guys like KJ Buffin. That's where Ole Miss was so weak, and that's where we got demolished by Oklahoma in the NCAA tournament. I'm excited to see this team play in March. I know they're going to. We're just going to see how strong of a team we wind up playing and who we can contend with.
I can already tell by this team. This team is definitely one that's going to jump in a passing lane. We already have 9 steals tonight, and we're not even in the half yet.
9 steals, and Arkansas State's made 9 shots.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited for this team. They showed us a lot of reason to believe in them last year and hung with teams that were among the best in the country. No, we didn't play Michigan State, we didn't play Duke, we didn't play UNC, but hanging out with Tennessee, Kentucky, at home, incredible home environment. I haven't been to a ton of college basketball, but, man, if this isn't one of the most fun places in the country to watch a game over at the Pavilion, then I don't know what is, because that's something players love, players, coaches, fans can all rally behind. We showed we can hang with the big boys. We're going to see if we can. Speaking of some of the big boys in college basketball, a lot of news out of Memphis. You want to elaborate a little bit on Penny Hardaway?
This was released about an hour ago at this point. The news that James Wiseman, Memphis' number 1 recruit, and I believe number 1 recruit in the country last year.
Yeah, number 1 projected in the 2020 NBA draft.
Has been ruled ineligible to play for the rest of the year because of some stuff that happened when he was moving to Memphis.
So what it looks like happened, and by the way, playing tonight might be the last game he plays for Memphis. But Penny Hardaway, current Memphis coach, that was big hire, splash hire, and recent development. What's coming out is he helped finance Wiseman and his family move to Memphis back when he was in high school, and due to donations to the school from Hardaway, the NCAA deemed him as a booster, making these impermissible benefits. As it stands right now, ineligible for the rest of the year. That's likely to be appealed. He can play tonight, but
from everything from the Memphis University of Memphis Athletics, they've announced that he's playing tonight because of a temporary restraining order by the court today. He was jointly standard eligible reviewed earlier this year in May, but as a deeper investigation happened, it was discovered that the allegations were true. The plan is, it's evident that they're planning on suing and trying to prevent this from happening, just like Missouri is doing with their NCAA allegations. But the major point is that Penny Hardaway provided $11,500 in moving expenses to the Wiseman family to relocate to Memphis, unknown to Wiseman himself, but known to his parents. So that's the big splash. That's the big news out of Memphis right there. It definitely going to shake up basketball as a whole, because Memphis has been talked as a dark horse national championship contender if Wiseman's able to play all year.
And you know what? Memphis came out of nowhere. This almost rings to me as when they were saying, when Ole Miss got caught, took sanctions, they're saying we were going 115 and a 55 when everyone else was going 60. This is what it looks like just at first glance. Of course, we're going to learn a lot more, even just over this weekend. He's playing tonight. We'll see if he plays the rest of the season. But beyond that, I think that's got to be the biggest news in college sports today.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. That news, and of course with the news with the Ohio State defensive end suspended. Two big kind of suspensions news is happening the same day the NCAA.
The NCAA coming down hard on a Friday afternoon, as they love to do. We all know a little too well here at Ole Miss. But I think that's all we've got for our show today. Payton, thank you for coming on in George's absence. It's been a pleasure having you.
It's been great, guys.
Yeah, so we'll be back here at noon on Monday. Till then, enjoy your weekend. Go watch Ole Miss body some FBS Independent. Go watch the Ole Miss basketball game, and if you respect yourself, you'll watch Alabama LSU. Until then, I've been John Finnegan, joined by Peyton Stanford, and this has been the G and Finn Show on 92.1 Rebel Radio.